Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with our next Shabbos guest. We're very excited to welcome Tal Fortgang. Tal is a legal policy fellow at the Manhattan Institute, and he will be joining us this Shabbos, leaving his wife and children behind. Joining us this Shabbos in conversation with Chief Judge Solemson. Should be a very interesting conversation. Welcome, Tal.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. I'm really looking forward to joining your community for Shabbos.
We're looking forward as well. So, give people a brief overview of kind of your educational background, your interests, and how you ended up in your current position.
Sure. Well, I grew up in New Rochelle, New York, not too far as the crow flies from Long Beach. I went to SAR Academy and SAR High School. I studied for a year at Yeshivat Har Etzion, and then studied politics and Judaic studies at Princeton, where I happen to be seated right now. Um, After I graduated about a decade ago, I went to work in Washington, D.C., and that's where I got my first exposure to the think tank life. I helped a team of scholars research and write about economic mobility and welfare policy, and then started to move over to thinking about legal issues, constitutional issues during my last year working at a think tank, and decided to go to law school. So I went to NYU Law, from which I graduated about three and change years ago. I went to clerk for then Judge Solemson, now Chief Judge Solemson. We wrote, lots of good legal materials together. We also ventured into writing some op-eds and essays together. On hot button topics of the day. Um, and I got that think tank bug once again, and I got an offer from the Manhattan Institute to come uh, research and write about many of the things that I imagine the congregants at your shul are thinking about: anti-Semitism, the future of the West, um, crime and justice, and really anything that I think is important. So in that way, it's a dream job. I get to spend my time working on things that I think matter, and hopefully trying to win hearts and minds and shape some laws.
Fascinating. Well, so walk us through, like, what is a day in the life of somebody in a think tank? Like, what are you doing on a daily basis?
Well, the first thing to know about the think tank life is that it's an incredibly flexible schedule. So I get to spend so much time with my wife and kids. It's wonderful. It's like an
Wow.
incredible bracha that like I get up with my two sons every morning, and take care of them and send them off to school, and I spend quality time with them every evening. That's really the most important part. And I work mostly from home, so I get to spend uh, lots of good time together with my wife. That's a real blessing. As far as the work goes, every day is quite different. All I can say is that it always involves quite a lot of reading and writing. What I'm reading, whether that's court opinions or existing laws or proposed legislation or op-eds or research reports, that varies, but I spend my time writing op-eds that you might see in popular newspapers like the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post. Um, Writing longer essays that you might see in places like Commentary Magazine, um, or smaller online magazines. Uh, Writing model legislation that we want states or the federal government to adopt. Working with officials at every level of government, trying to persuade them that our ideas are worth implementing. And okay, you have that concern. Here's how we can allay that concern. Horse trading in that way. Um, and all kinds of different materials, amicus briefs, uh, legislation, op-eds, essays. It's words. I like to joke that I work with words one way or another.
Interesting. And is there a particular political perspective that you're bringing to the table, or is it kind of is it officially objective? How does it work?
I'll be upfront about my own I wouldn't call them prejudices. I think that undersells them, but it's definitely a right of center think tank dedicated to free markets, um, and individual responsibility, the rule of law. The Manhattan Institute is famously known for being tough on crime. If you've heard of broken windows policing, that is a theory that was pioneered
Giuliani,
at the Manhattan Institute well before my time, obviously. But
Giuliani, right?
what's that?
Was that under Giuliani? That was the theory.
It was developed before Giuliani's time, and then Mayor Giuliani famously said that his governing agenda was just copying and pasting from the Manhattan Institute playbook. And for those who are interested, there's a large profile of my boss and the whole institution in the New York Times today. I just saw the web version where they give Manhattan Institute credit for the Giuliani playbook, which, well, I don't know if that's credit or blame in the eyes of the New York Times, but it was a fair article. It was a fair and even-handed article. But that's who we are, and I'll be upfront and candid about that. That's my perspective.
Always the best way. So maybe can you share a particular policy issue or agenda that you are particularly passionate about and that maybe was successfully implemented or adopted as a result of your advocacy?
Yeah, when I was living in Washington, D.C., at the end of 2023, beginning of 2024, it was obviously an extremely tumultuous time in the aftermath of October 7th. And one of the things that I noticed walking from my apartment to Judge Solomson's chambers is almost every day there would be some kind of vandalism, usually on public, which is federal property in Washington, D.C. There was a park right near my apartment where people would scrawl "Hamas is coming" with the red triangle um, frequently. And I would contemplate what I was seeing on these walks, and I'd say, like, this is illegal, right? This is vandalism. It's vandalism on federal property. It's a federal crime, yet it continues to happen. Um, and people would say things like, don't these vandals or people who block roads on behalf of the anti-Israel cause, don't they realize that they're alienating potential allies and that they should stop on their own? Yet it did not stop. In fact, it only ramped up. So I developed a theory that I call civil terrorism, which helps explain why these things happen and how to deal with them. And the theory is that the people who engage in this kind of behavior are not trying to persuade you of the rightness of their ideas. That would be participation in the political process. What they're doing is much more akin to employing the logic of terrorism, which is we are trying to intimidate and coerce you through unlawful behavior, and we don't care if we alienate you. In fact, alienating you is a sign that we're doing something right because eventually we're going to make your life so miserable and so intolerable that you're going to have to give in to us. So, a large part of my work now at the Manhattan Institute is developing laws, regulations, and prosecutorial strategies for dealing with this kind of law breaking, which tends to be treated with kid gloves because it's usually misdemeanors, minor crimes. Vandalism is a minor crime, but as we all know, vandalism that repeatedly threatens Hamas is coming is not a small deal, right? That is indicative of something much larger and much more threatening. So I've mostly worked with states to
Kind of
stiffen
similar to the
penalties.
broken window theory, right? It starts.
Exactly. Exactly. It meshes very nicely with our general view of how to keep public order. Um, so I've been working with several states to develop legislation that would raise penalties for minor crimes committed in particularly destructive or disruptive or disorderly ways. Um, I'm happy to say that the state of Utah took up my model legislation very quickly and
Wow.
passed it, and it became law in March. Arizona may follow suit. It passed the House in Arizona. We have legislators in Texas and several other states looking to introduce and ratify such laws in the coming year, and we are developing federal analogs to deal with that problem that first alerted me to this issue.
That's really interesting. And what about in your home base, the Manhattan Institute? Has it been adopted?
We have some special obstacles in Manhattan. There are things we can do to preserve the good working order in the city of New York and to preserve Jewish life in New York. Obviously, there have been some horrifying recent incidents of violence against Jews and the constant threat of escalation against Jews, which comes right from the top in New York. And I can assure you that my more New York focused colleagues are laser focused on the issue of keeping New York orderly and functioning. The most important sign of which frequently is how are the Jews feeling? It's a cliche to say that we're the canary in the coal mine, but I can tell you that my non-Jewish colleagues, bless them, uh, they recognize that that is an extremely important bellwether for the health and functioning of the city.
Wow. Wow. Very interesting. I guess last question before I let you go. I saw that, particularly as it relates to New York, that Mayor Mamdani had created a judicial panel of 18 lawyers and failed to include any Jews on that panel. Any comments on that?
As a Jewish lawyer myself, I'm a little disappointed that I didn't get a call. Uh, and look, I think there are some things that speak for themselves. I don't know what it takes to avoid all Jewish lawyers on any panel of lawyers in New York, but that's impressive. And I don't think that any of us need more evidence that uh, that which masquerades as simply anti-Zionism or opposition to the Netanyahu government or whatever excuse of the day doesn't manifest in the organization of politics against the Jews in other ways. That's it's obvious at this point uh, what is going on, even if it is a little bit more subtle than it has been historically.
Thank you. No, that makes sense. Thank you very much. We're really looking forward to learning more about your important work and your successes, your articles over Shabbos. Thank you so much again for joining us, and looking forward to Shabbos.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it.